Welcome to the Hud Grad Club. I'm Webb, and I'm the Alumni Engagement Career Consultant with the University of Huddersfield's Careers Employability Service. And, full disclosure, I'm also a University of Huddersfield graduate. So I've generally got pretty positive things to say about both the institution and any of our graduates. But don't take my word for it. In this podcast, we'll be meeting different members of the University of Huddersfield's global alumni community, finding out what makes them tick, about their experiences during their time at the university and their career journeys since completing their studies. Join us as we explore the inspiring, innovative and diverse range of individuals that make up the Hud Grad Club. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hud Grad Club podcast. And Kat, a very warm welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's very good to have you here. If we've got kind of any viewers or listeners, kind of first of all, who've perhaps not come across you before, can you just tell us a little bit more about your background, so what you studied at the university and what you're currently up to now?
Yeah, I studied textile design in, I think it was 2002 to 2005, so quite a while ago now. And after a fairly long break in art and design, I've recently come back to it and I'm now working as a full-time collage artist. So I brand my company as Cat Taylor Creates, and I'm currently booking lots of private commissions. So I'm doing portraits and landscapes and that kind of thing for people as they book them. But I've recently started actively contacting companies who I have an interest in. So where I like their ethos or whatever it is that they're working on, I'm looking for companies that align with what I believe in. And I'm starting to reach out to those companies and sending them examples of my work and saying, I'd love to work with you. Is there any opportunity on any of your current projects? And I am starting to get work back. I'm going to be starting work with the Butterfly Conservation Charity soon, working on some outreach projects for children on videos and sort of blog paper activities and that kind of thing.
Fantastic. And I know we're going to kind of dig a little bit more into that journey, as you said, that time taken away, I guess, from the arts world and how you sort of got back into it a little bit later on in the podcast. But we start each episode, as always, with our greatest Hud story ever told section. So this is very much looking at kind of reflections from your time at the university and any sort of key memories or key stories that really kind of come to mind. So what would be, I guess, your greatest Hud story or stories you might want to share on the podcast?
Yeah, I've got quite a lot of very fond memories of my time at the university. I think the biggest thing for me was that my housemate had a baby in the first year, and we all ended up grouping together and bringing this child up for a couple of years. And we all sort of worked our own courses around childcare and helped her out so that she wouldn't have to put her into nursery and that kind of thing. So it was not your usual university experience at all, but it was something that it was really special for all of us, I think, because we all felt that we were contributing to the child's upbringing, but also really helping our friend in a way that you would never normally expect to have to help a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite transformative at the age you were at, I guess, to have that experience at that time. Yeah.
At 18, you don't expect to be studying for a degree and looking after a baby, but it was a good experience. And sometimes she came into uni with me and sat at the back of the classroom, which I don't know if they'd still allow now, but yeah, she'd be sat there playing with the toys at the back of the class.
Wow, absolutely incredible. Now, I mean, I think there's also as well, I remember you saying when we kind of talked previously, a slightly more kind of light-hearted story as well around a fez, which I think you wanted to share.
The head of the department at the time I was there, I think he retired a couple of years after I left, actually. But we called him Dr. John, and I can't for the life of me remember what his last name was now, but he was just the sweetest man, and he used to have this fez on top of his filing cabinet. So when we had meetings in his office, because he was my supervisor for my dissertation, he used to let me wear the fez. So I sit in his office wearing a fez, talking about my dissertation and eating chocolate from a bowl on his desk.
And did it help? Did the fez help with kind of idea generation for the dissertation?
Yeah, it definitely.
Oh, that's great. Brilliant story. I mean, you mentioned obviously that the degree that you studied was textile design, but as you said, there was perhaps kind of a bit more of a circuitous journey to kind of get back into, the arts world after finishing the degree. So tell us a little bit more then about kind of what sort of happened at the end of the degree. So what was that sort of transition like from kind of finishing the degree and kind of moving out to that graduate space, and how did it all kind of loop back round in the end?
Yeah, it wasn't too much of a hard transition for me because I've been working throughout my degree, and I've had jobs since I was 14, so I've always been used to working hard and earning my money and that kind of thing. It was, for me, disappointing that I couldn't get a job in textile design because I didn't want to move out of South Yorkshire, so I went back home to Sheffield, and I didn't really want to leave Sheffield. So I sort of accepted very early on that I wasn't going to be going into a career in textiles. And I had previously worked in sales throughout university, so I thought that seems to be an area that I'm good at. It's what I know, so I'm just going to stick in that. So I did field sales for a little bit. Then I went back to my job that I'd had throughout university, but full time. And then I worked in a bank for a little while. And then I worked at a training company. So I've had all sorts of different jobs. And I did get out of sales and move into more sort of admin roles, finance for a little while. I was PA for a little while. And then I got into copywriting. And then I finished up in marketing, which sort of led me back round to the creative side eventually. So it was a long road to get back there. But I got back there.
And how has that sort of kind of manifested itself now? So you mentioned, you're kind of back within sort of the kind of creative arts field now. And what does that sort of involve, the work you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so for a while I ran my own magazine. So I was made redundant from one job and wanted to not necessarily work for anybody else because I was quite scarred by being made redundant. It hurt quite bad. So I decided that I was going to set up my own business and set up a city magazine, like a bit of a tourism magazine for Sheffield. And I did that for about 18 months. So that sort of got me into graphic design and more of the copywriting and proofreading and things like that. And then I went to work at the University of Sheffield for 7 years in marketing. And then it was only when I had my daughter that I decided, well, I sort of got back into doing art with her. So we were doing, handprints and fingerprints and all sorts of messy paint stuff. And the more I did it with her, the more I found that I was really enjoying it. And the more I realised how much I'd missed it from my life. So I started doing things for myself then. And then I wrote some children's books and decided that I wanted to illustrate them myself. And I had a really clear vision of how I wanted them to look. I wanted them to be in the sort of style of Eric Carle with the Hungry Caterpillar. So I thought I'll just have a crack at it and see if I can pull it off myself. And I did, and I found that I was quite good at it, and I really enjoyed collage. So I carried on with it, and then did that for a few years, just selling the odd commission and art print. And then when we went to school in September, I decided that I was just going to give it a go and make it my business and do it full time. And that's what I've been doing since last September.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. And I mean, you mentioned obviously that's kind of really sort of built up iteratively over time, I guess, to get you to this point. How have some of those other roles, I guess, helped? Because you mentioned, quite a lot of involvement in things that I guess are all relatively important when it comes to kind of running a business in terms of the sales aspect, marketing, admin, all those sort of things. So have those all kind of contributed, I guess, to what you're doing now as well?
Absolutely. I think if I hadn't have done those jobs, I don't know that I could successfully run my own business. Certainly the marketing for me has been a major thing, because as an artist, if you don't market yourself, nobody's going to find you. So you can't just sit in your little studio drawing or cutting or painting or whatever you're doing and expect people to come and find you. So I've had to really work at my marketing and PR to make sure that people can find me.
And speaking of, I guess, the PR side and people finding you, I know you've kind of recently had a sort of exposure to a slightly larger audience through a kind of TV show you're involved in just before Christmas, I believe, or probably slightly earlier than Christmas when it was filmed.
In October it was filmed. It was Kirstie, Handmade Christmas. So it's something that I've watched for absolutely years and years, and never in a million years would I have imagined myself going on it or even thought to apply for it. But I received a very random message on Instagram at the end of September, I think it was, saying, would I be interested in going on Kirstie? Could I send in an application? And at first I thought it was a bit of a scam and ignored it. And then I thought, I'm just going to reply and see what happens. So I replied, and within, I think it was 9 days, I was there on set filming.
Wow, incredible. And what was the sort of experience like? I mean, I think a lot of people, I guess, probably haven't been on TV. I certainly haven't. And yeah, kind of maybe unsure, what does it kind of feel like, I guess, to sort of do that?
It felt awkward to begin with. There was To start with, we did like a one-to-one interview in a little Santa's grotto type area. So the camera was sort of here above my head and a microphone here, and it all felt a bit much. But then when we were actually on set, and there was just they have like the big overhead boom cameras, and they're just milling around as we're doing our thing, and we're all chatting amongst each other. We just completely forgot the cameras were there, and we were all really relaxed into it, and we just had a really nice day of crafting.
That's brilliant. I mean, what we will do is we'll kind of share the link if we can find it. There may be some sort of YouTube link, or kind of, don't know if the Channel 4 program's still up. It's always hard to tell when they kind of take those down, but we'll make sure we kind of share something. People can have a look at that, if they're watching or listening to the podcast. And I mean, you mentioned there, I guess that's kind of part of what's been sort of that current process for you of starting the business, and what's that been like, I guess, in comparison to the previous sort of things you've been involved in your career? How is that sort of going, that kind of starting up of the new business, and I guess kind of devoting your full time to that now?
Yeah, well, I think the Kirstie's Handmade Christmas thing was a very unexpected push in the right direction. It came just as I was deciding, am I going to do this or am I not? And I was on the fence, and I sort of decided that I was going to do it. And then I got this message, and I thought, right, this is it. This is the start. This is the opportunity that I need. It could not have come at a better time. If anybody's going to see me, it's now. I need to make everything happen now. So it pushed me to do all sorts of things that I probably would have just, wasted time thinking about and not got on with, like designing my website, doing other bits of PR. So I've been on BBC Radio Sheffield a few times since. I've been in newspapers and magazines and things since. So all that sort of thing, I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to do had it not been for being asked to go on to Kirstie. It gave me a real confidence boost, just that one message. Yeah,
and I guess really striking while the iron is hot, as you say, kind of using that platform. It might only, be there for a short time, so you kind of get the most of it. Yeah.
It gave me a deadline as well, because I knew it was going to air at some point in December. We didn't know when until the week before. So from October to December, I was thinking, right, I've got this time. I need to work on my website. I need to work on my copy. I need to work on my PR. I need to have a marketing plan in place. I need to know what I'm doing, and it all needs to be ready by the time this show airs. So it was a really good kick up the backside to just get me going.
I mean, really sort of interesting reflections there, Kat, I guess, around, as you said, having gone through some of those sort of quite different roles to then get to here, and how that sort of informed, running the business. I guess just to kind of come back sort of, to tie all of that together, you mentioned there about, I suppose, the initial disappointment of not being able to kind of find a role sort of within the creative arts, or specifically within sort of textile design when you graduated. But I know when we've spoken before, you also mentioned about, that ability in other jobs to potentially find the creative elements, that sort of almost focus on job crafting. So kind of tweaking the job you're doing to make it a bit more appealing to your skill set or strength. So do you feel that's something that you have been able to do, even when the job maybe hasn't been, I guess, nominally creative? You found a way to sort of make it a bit more creative.
Yeah, definitely. I've been incredibly lucky with the managers that I've had throughout my career in different jobs. I've had very laid back managers who can see that I have potential, and they've just allowed me to run with it. So that when they've seen that I have a skill somewhere, rather than saying, well, that's not really in your job, so just do your job, as long as I've been getting my job done, they've allowed me to go with it and do the other things. So when I was working at the university, they were just really happy for me just to run with whatever ideas I had, and just, get them out there and see where they led to. So I ran a magazine at the university. I did like skills videos for outreach. So for children interested in getting into engineering, it was like little activities that they could do at home. I did all sorts of really creative things that were absolutely not part of my job description, but I wanted to do them and I enjoyed doing them, and they were what made me get up and go to work in the morning. And if it hadn't have been for me introducing those elements to my work, I don't think I would have lasted as long in the jobs that I've had, and I don't think I'd have enjoyed them as much either. So I've been really grateful to my managers that they've allowed me to do that. It's important for everybody to do it. If you know you've got skills somewhere and you think you can bring something else, something extra to the table, it gives you a head start over the other people when you're applying for jobs. So when I was applying for marketing jobs, I was able to say, I've I've done graphic design, so I can use InDesign, I can use Illustrator, I can use Premiere Pro. I've got all these skills that other people wouldn't be able to bring to the table, and it therefore saves the department or the company money because you're able to do it in-house rather than sending it external. So it's a great way to add to your own CV is to bring these things in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such an important point about, not kind of being constrained, by the job description. As you say, it's sort of, the temptation is to be, because that's kind of what you've signed up for, I guess, when you've applied. And as you said, sometimes I guess it does depend on the managers or the staff you're working with. But of course, a lot of that is within your agency as well, and your control. And as you said, it, offers a lot of value often to the company you're working with, not just now, but also any future companies you might work with too. To come back, I guess, finally, to sort of wrap up the career journey side of things, I guess you mentioned there having good managers, obviously really, really important, or has been really important as part of your career. Have there been kind of any other people, I guess, that have been particularly significant in your career journey to date that you might also want to give a shout out to on the podcast?
Yeah, I think friends and family have been really important as well, because they've seen where I have skills and they've encouraged me to not just sit on them, to do something with them. And I think just having a supportive circle around you, it helps, doesn't it? It makes you feel that you can achieve things. It makes you believe in yourself a bit more. So yeah, friends and family have been really important in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting how often that's kind of come up on the podcast. There have always been sort of significant people, I guess, from a professional perspective that have been mentioned, but generally most of our guests have always come back to that support network as well. So it's really nice to hear that kind of reiterated again. So I mean, Kat, thanks so much for that sort of walk through your career journey. It's really interesting to hear sort of what you're up to now and sort of how you kind of got to that point off the back of the degree. We finished the podcast, as always, with our underrated careers advice section. So this is could be one piece or multiple pieces of advice from your kind of career to date that you feel have been particularly useful for you, or something that might be particularly useful for current students or graduates, either from your degree background or kind of more generally. So is there anything you'd like to kind of share with us?
Yeah, I think we talked about how other people have helped in my career and pushed me and supported me. But I think the only person who is ever going to make your career is you. You have to be willing to work hard, but also be willing to put yourself out there. You can't just sit there and keep your skills to yourself and hide them. Unless you're shouting about it and you're showing people what you can do, nobody's going to know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that, I guess you were saying earlier, almost kind of challenging that imposterism can be kind of very difficult, but actually you need to, if a platform comes up, as you mentioned, like Kirstie's Handmade Christmas, that gives you the chance to go, oh, actually people, do want to know about this or do want to find out about it. It's kind of, I guess, taking those opportunities as they come, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If an opportunity arises, be a yes man. Don't say no. Don't say, oh, I'm not good enough. There's somebody better. You can find somebody else who will do better than me. If somebody's offering it you, take it with both hands. Just give it a go. If you don't enjoy it, you don't do it again. But you might find that you enjoy something you didn't think you would, or that you've got more confidence out of it. That by holding doors open for yourself, you just make so many more opportunities for yourself.
No, absolutely. And as you say, sometimes, I think we don't often feel that we're ever depriving the world of our talents, because naturally, I think people try not to be that sort of, kind of self-interested, but it is, as you say, you never know how people are going to feel about the work you produce or the skills you have to offer. So you have to give it a chance, I guess. Yeah.
And I think especially in creative roles, I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I think so many creative people don't think that they're good enough because creative person, you're usually a bit of a perfectionist, so you will be seeing every little wrong detail or any fault or flaw in your own work, and you just have to remember that other people aren't looking for them. They won't see them, and they'll be seeing the whole picture rather than that one little detail that you're not happy with. So you just need to let things go sometimes.
Excellent advice to end on there. Thanks, Kat. So if we've had sort of any students, graduates, staff, or anyone else who's been interested watching or listening to the podcast, where can kind of people find out a little bit more about the work that you do, or potentially kind of connect with you if they're interested in finding out more?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Cat Taylor Creates, and it's cat with a K, or on my website, which is www.cattaylorcreates.com. And there's email and things on there as well to get in touch, and obviously pictures of my work and all sorts of arty goodness.
Fantastic. Well, what we will do is we will flash those up on the screen in the podcast edit. So if you're, particularly if you're watching this, you will see those kind of flash up. And if you're listening to this, you'll be able to kind of find it on the transcript. So yeah, do check that out, and do have a look at some of Kat's work if you've been following the podcast and interested in finding out more. But that brings us really nicely to the end of the podcast. Kat, thanks so much for sharing your career journey and becoming another latest member of the Hud Grad Club. And yeah, we wish you best of luck with everything moving forward.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All the best. Take care. Enjoyed the podcast? Then go to the University of Huddersfield YouTube channel for all of our future episodes. Subscribe, like, and don't forget to hit the bell button for notifications. If you'd like to be involved in the Hud Grad Club podcast moving forward, please get in touch with us on alumni@hud.ac.uk.